center, steps back, throws a fade, back shoulder. Cooper Kupp got it! Cooper Kupp brings it in!
Good evening, football fans, and more specifically, football DFS fans. Welcome back to another week of Touchdowns for Dough. Finally, we are a trio once more. Mark, where have you been?
Injured reserve. I was actually on injured reserve when I was away. I got bitten by a mosquito on my left hand, and it swelled up like the Nutty Professor. It was absolutely mad. Never had that reaction to anything like that before. It was crazy. So yeah, back off injured reserve now. So obviously DFS is a two-handed sport. So I'm now back.
I bet that made the hand signals quite difficult in Italy with that. You must have had.
Thankfully I'm right-handed.
Yeah, good to see you back, Mark. Good to see
Great
you
to be back. This show is so good, and I'm so excited about it. And hopefully, I can add a little bit of boring maths to the whole thing, because that's the only thing that's basically missing from weeks 1 and 2. A bit of boring maths. So I'm here.
Yeah, well, we have missed you dearly. Jack, we are live. I know you did say that just before the time it came on. The video, I was like, no, chill, I've got this. Jack, did anything happen to you this past week? I don't think it did.
No, it's
12 hours.
It's been a bit quiet. It's been a bit disappointing, as Mark said in our group chat. He was a bit disappointed in me. Come back when you win 3K. It was a good week. It pays to have them notifications on, like I say, all the time. So yeah, it was a good week. I'm happy to be back on the show, and I'm happy Mark's back. That's he completes us, and he keeps us in line, doesn't he, Nick? So I'm happy that he's back.
He certainly does. Let's segue into that then, Jack, because you had, for anyone who doesn't know who's watching, who hasn't been on the X today,
the
X, Twitter, you have rinsed the bookies once more. This was something that you were smashing last year, and the form has continued. It's literally taken you 2 weeks. You had a decent win last week, and then you've come out the blocks this week and you're probably on the brink of the Bet365 blacklist. But tell the listeners, Jack, what's the secret?
Well, I'm definitely on their blacklist because they had to refer that bet that I had to their traders. So I'm definitely on some sort of watch list by Bet365, I can tell you that. So the process is pretty simple.
It was only, Jack, it was only £2, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was only £2 they referred, wasn't it? Not the full.
I didn't really get it. But they've done that a couple of times that I've put NFL bets on. So they may well be watching me, but I don't really care. They're quite happy to take people's money, but they just don't like it when it goes the other way. And like Nick said, I really rinsed them last night.
You could always go and become a bet influencer for 888 Sport.
I could.
We don't want to see him naked.
They might be on my list next, actually, because they're also very, very bad at updating their odds. And the only problem with them is that they don't offer the two braces that I like to do, the double touchdown bets. Anyway, back to the process. It's pretty simple, really. You just have Ian Rappaport's and Adam Schefter's tweets on constantly, their notifications. So I get notifications. I will go into the process of how I got to that bet last night. I've a big spreadsheet of all the depth charts on every NFL team. I have markers against people that are injured or questionable. Let's say that. So I know who the backups are for every NFL team. I know right down to like fourth string running backs and things like that on teams. I'm a proper geek like that. I could probably sell this spreadsheet. I'm not going to, but there's a lot of work that that is involved in doing it. But I tried to keep it up to date as much as possible. But yeah, about 9:30 last night, I saw a tweet from, I think it was Ian Rappaport, saying that the Saints had elevated Tony Jones off the practice squad. I then reverted back to my sheet that I was on about then, and obviously I've seen that I've monitored the Saints backfield going into that game for DFS purposes, really. But I saw that Kendre Miller was questionable all week, hadn't really practiced, and as you two know full well, when a team elevates a player off the practice squad, that normally means that the player that's been questionable all week is not going to play. So I then had to look at, what is the current state of the New Orleans Saints and the matchup and things. So I got to the matchup first. They were playing the Carolina Panthers, who gave up 3 rushing touchdowns in week 1 to the Falcons. Great matchup straight away. I then looked at the Saints. Great wide receiver core, as we all know. Decent tight end. But the running back situation is horrible. You've got Jamal Williams, and then it was Tony Jones. And Jamal Williams is not going to get 100% of the touches. That'd be, suicide. So I thought, maybe, Jones gets a few touches and maybe they use him on the goal line. Maybe he gets in for 1. But I always do both. I do it any time. And the brace, thankfully, he got in for both. I got a bit lucky with the injury to Jamal Williams. You do need a little bit of luck to get these bets in. But the main process behind it is literally just have notifications on. That's all you need is notification. I can't give these bets out. People have come to me today going, can you let me know next time you put one of these bets on, blah, 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 blah. I can't give these bets out because if I give them out, 1, they'll lose, and then you'll come crying to me moaning. And then 2, I forgot what I was going to say.
You're probably going to say if you give them out, Jack, they won't be good bets anymore because the price will change. No,
that was it. Sorry, yeah. So 2,
yeah.
If it's been a long day. I've been up very early this morning. It's been a long day. So yeah, if I give them out, the price is not going to be what I get it at, and you're probably going to get it at really crap odds. So again, going back to the example last night, I looked at the cash out that was being offered by Bet365 literally about 5 minutes before kickoff, and they were offering double my money. So they knew that they'd screwed up. So yeah, I was getting offered 40 quid on the £20 bet and 20 quid on the £10 bet. So they knew they screwed up. I let it run. Some people would cash out. That's fine. Do what you need to do. But yeah, that's the process behind it. It literally, have some notifications on. Look at who the team are playing. Look at the depth chart. And it was a perfect scenario last night, really, with the Saints backfield. He was always going to get touches, regardless of what Jamal Williams' status was in that game.
I think you hit in the first week with Kyron Williams, didn't you?
No, that was on Sunday. I hit with that.
Oh yeah, I've been that long of a few days since. You hit with that, and like that's after the first week where he goes in for 2 scores as well.
Yep.
Like it can definitely pay off, especially on teams where there's potentially a committee, because like you said, sometimes you will need a little bit of luck, but someone goes down and all of a sudden it clears the path to the committee back to receive more touches or, like you said, goal line work. So if that spreadsheet that you've got, Jack, is anything like the one that you used to use for golf, yes, you could sell it. But you'd probably undersell it. So it's probably best just not to do that.
To be fair as well, people can go out there. You don't have to have my spreadsheet. You can go out there. There's loads of these depth charts where you can. Our lads do it. Ourlads.com, I think it's called. They do one, and you can get every team's depth chart on there. Obviously, you're not going to get the colour stuff that I have on mine, which tells me there's players questionable, players injured, blah, blah, blah. It takes a bloody lot of work to keep this going, what I do. But I use it more for DFS purposes than I do betting. But as you said, Nick, I've had a run of this now. I mean, I had a good run last year. I'd say since COVID, I've been doing this, and I've had them quite a few times.
Yeah.
I think, something I think is worth saying about this for people, and especially because I know, Jack, you've shown us people have been sort of like, they just want free money off you by you giving away bets and stuff. These are only good bets at a certain price, So what were the odds that you got for yesterday's one that you won? I've forgotten what it was. 70?
So I got 9-1 for the single anytime, and then I got 125 to 1 for the brace. But by the time kickoff had come, that brace had gone down to 22 to 1.
Yeah, so I suspect, Jack, you're not necessarily as interested in it at 22 to 1 as you were at 125. And so, it's the fact that it happened is irrelevant. It's about the price that you'll get for it and the chances of it happening being more likely than the odds you're going to get paid, which is, exactly the same principles that we talk about with DFS and stuff as well. The price is important. That's why giving out tips and stuff like that, better people understand the process rather than you saying on a Sunday at 5:00, bet this fella, oh, by the way, he's halved in price. So actually there's no value in it anymore.
No, exactly. As I said, you can get all of this information for free. It's completely free. All you need is notifications from a couple of these reporters like Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter. And then you can go to ourlads.com, like I say, and you can use the depth charts, see who's behind and things like that. And there you go. It's pretty simple. I find it like, I'll give that out as well. I find it works better with running backs compared to wide receivers and tight ends naturally, because once the team gets down to the goal line, the running back's probably going to get 2 looks at least, isn't he? Like to try and punch that in before they start throwing it most of the time. So, that's it. It's a simple process, and if it helps other people win money, I hope you can win as much as I did last night. I'm very happy with what I won last night.
I think as well the changing dynamic of the NFL leans more to those bets looking more favourable than they used to. What I mean by that is goal line work. You get within kind of 5 yards, and even 10 yards in some instances. In NFL now, it's like teams are a lot more expressive in the play calling and will be braver in those scenarios than they used to, where you would just take the points on offer and take the field goal after 3 downs.
Yep.
Whereas now, I think a lot more teams see it as, well, we've got the confidence in our guys. This is 4 down territory for us. We're going to go and take 7 points. And I think that helps because, like you said, you're probably getting at least, if you're within 5 yards, you're probably getting at least 2 runs. And if you're chopping that 5 yards down to 1 or 2 yards, you're potentially getting another run before they're then making that decision of, do we go for the field goal, or, as a lot of teams are doing now, 4 down territory, let's just punch it in, or fake run, little dink pass play over to the tight end, something like that. I just think like the way that the league has gone and how plays are called now, I think teams are just more expressive and take more chances, and that leads nicely into kind of like, those bets are, despite the odds, probably more likely to come off than they might have been, say, 5 years ago. I don't know.
Well, if you go to like my highlights on Twitter, or the X as we call it now, you can see I've got a history of it. There's loads on there. They're all highlights. So you can go on there. It's doable for anyone. If I can do it, other people can do it. As I say, it's a very, very simple process.
Yeah. Well, you are successful at it, and you have been doing it for a while now. So it obviously works. So follow Jack's lead, and watch that betting account balance tick up.
Can I
DFS.
just say one more thing about betting before we move on to DFS as well?
Yeah.
So I listened to a podcast back in August. Sorry, it was a Pat Mayo one. I can't remember the guest that he had on about betting, but there's a lot of basically the bookies hate what I done last night because it's a single bet. They want people betting accumulators, things like that. I would urge everyone to go and listen to this podcast. Like I say, it made me change my ways with betting a lot. I don't bet accumulators really now. I don't, that's what the bookies want you to do, and there's a reason they want you to do it because they will lose half the time. As whereas these single bets like I do, you got more chance of them paying off. So just again, it'll be in the Pat Mayo feed. Just go back. It was sometime in August. I can't remember the guest, but it mentions betting in the title of the podcast. Just go back and listen to it. I found it quite a interesting podcast to listen to.
It's interesting because we're willing to play a double up DFS contest, for example. But if you were to look at some touchdown scorers on a Sunday, more often than not, anytime, even your kind of top running backs, top wide receivers, top tight ends will be 5 to 6 on, or will be even money, or 6 to 5. And you might happily throw a £10 at a 5-player touchdown accumulator, and a lot has to go right for that to come in. You might have the right 5 players on a weekend that you think they'll score, but putting them into one bet, all 5 of those have to win for you to win.
Yeah.
And it sounds obvious saying that, but actually approaching it in singular terms like you do,
yeah.
And even with odds even money, you're essentially playing a double up. But you're not playing anyone else. You're just playing the bookie and the game itself. You're just playing that outcome.
You just have to get one thing right as well.
Yeah. The moral of the story is if the bookies want you to do that, then it's probably a bad thing to do. So don't do it. I have a pet hate of these the featured bets that they do sometimes, like bookies, like Sky. I think Sky Bet do one where they do like a treble touchdown scorer thing. I mean, I'd like to keep track of that, actually. This may be something I might do going forward. I'd like to keep track of how many times that actually wins in the season. One, I think the odds are absolutely crap, and you could probably get better odds if you shopped around for that treble that they do. And again, if they're wanting you to do it, it's, exactly. So I hate them things, and I see people do them. I just personally hate them. I think it's really bad that people follow them. Like I say, go listen to that podcast. It made me change my mindset with betting completely.
Yeah, I've been more of in NFL terms an accumulator better, but the more I think about it now, the more I think I might have had 3 or 4 out of that accumulator that have come in. I'd have probably been better served just putting the singles on and taking the small profit that I'd have been up by, because more often than not, your minimum odds, if you shop around, like I said, 5 to 6 on, even money, 6 to 5, depending on who they're playing. Sometimes a little bit more than that as well. But to be honest, I did have a little win over the weekend myself. And I say a little win, it's a little bet kind of pot that me and my dad have going. And I saw for the 6 p.m. games that there were odds for a field goal from every team in the 6 p.m. games. And I said to him, do you know what? At some point that'll come off. It will come off. That's another one of them bets though, Jack, like you've just said, like the boosts, where how many times does that not come off, and how much money do you spend? The one time it does, you've probably just about broken even. But it came off literally the first week that I saw that bet ever. So I'm probably never going to back it ever again.
But didn't you say your dad used a £5 free bet for that?
Yeah.
So if you go back and listen to that podcast, like I keep going back to, that's what they actually. The guy on there was saying that when they give you free bets, you should just put them on.
Be more speculative.
Like in a big accumulator. Just be whatever, like something that's, that's probably not going to pay off. But if it does pay off, you're going to win quite. You're going to I don't know, like treble your money or something like that off the free. I don't know, just something like that. Something quite big. So that's what they actually say on that podcast that you should be doing anyway. So
yeah, well, it was a 28-1 speculative bet, and it was a free bet. So yeah, it came in. But I know, like you said, it's like almost like a novelty bet. That one, you're not expecting it to come in. It's nice when it does. But yeah, I can't see that coming off very often, because if they're offering odds of 28-1, there's more than likely historical data there that Sky Bet have looked at where that doesn't happen 16 out of 17 weeks in a season, if not more than that.
And I will say as well, these bets that I do don't always come off. So you have to, take the rough with the smooth. But when they do come off, you're well up on the season. Like what I've won last night is, I'm not going to bet that. I'm not going to play that amount in DFS. I'm well up on the season now. I'm playing the season for free. So anything else that comes in between now and the end of the season, when's the Super Bowl? February? Yeah, now till February is going to be it's going to be even more on top of what I've won. So it's just going to be, you have to take the rough with the smooth with it. It doesn't always pay off, but when it does, it does.
Yeah. I mentioned then in the bets about almost treating it as if it's a double up. And fellas, I'm 2 weeks into the season. Anything that's been GPP thus far has been a grind. But anything that's been cash hasn't been too bad. So I feel like I'm going to strafe more to cash lineups this week, with maybe just an entry in the Millie or a single entry contest, something like that. But I'm feeling like cash is starting to be king in this, as well as golf. But here we have the winning lineup of the week, GPP wise. And this was the Millie Maker winning lineup. Any thoughts, fellas, on the state of DFS, contests, building lineups, the Millie Maker, anything at all? Let's just get it out there. Let's get it on the table. Open table discussion.
I'll let Mark start.
First thing, Nick. Sorry,
yeah.
Yeah. First thing I'd say, Nick, is you need to put the names of the players on there for me, because I don't recognise them. They're always wearing helmets when I watch them.
Absolute disgrace.
Yeah, obviously I recognise a couple. So although I've been away for 2 weeks, I've been consuming a lot of content for the last 2 weeks and stuff. And you guys know, I think you feel the same and stuff. I'm pretty passionate about new people, beginners getting proper advice, decent advice, so they don't basically just slowly burn through their bankroll and stuff. And one thing I always go on about, I've gone about it for years, since you've known me, Nick, pretty much, when we first started years ago. Especially if you're playing, these bigger contests and stuff, it's more important for you to try and understand what other people are doing in the DFS contest. Not trying to predict the future, not trying to predict what goes on the field, because, it's very hard to predict that. We have all the stats available to us, even for free, even without a PFF subscription. You can always find out who does well against slot receivers in this zone and who does well against cover 3, man zone, We have all the stats. And there's people who spend a lot of their week just looking at those stats and they still don't win these things. The people who are winning, and the people who make, the people who make money out of this stuff, the professionals and stuff, they don't really worry about that. They're more worried about what's going on in the contest. And if somebody doesn't believe me about this, because I've been going for years and people don't believe me, they still just say, oh yeah, this, I don't know, let's name a player. Hunter Renfro is a good play this week because, against the slot, It's gibberish in DFS, just pointless. But nobody has to believe me. Look at the DFS ecosystem. In the last month, there's been 4 new contest simulation tools come out by SaberSims, Stochastic, Runner Sims, and the Solver. All backed with a lot of money, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to develop, etc. And what these simulations do is they try and predict the field of any contest. Then you put in a lineup or lineups, and it runs against those lineups 10,000 times to see if that would be generally a profitable lineup. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that people should go and buy these tools because one, they're expensive, and two, if you don't know how to use them, that's even more of an expense and a waste of money. But what it shows, there's two things. These are being called the holy grail of tools. Okay. If they're called the holy grail, what they're doing must be the best thing. And then it's come out. Anybody who listens to LOLs with Peter Overzet and Brian Hooper, Brick75 is a professional. He's admitted the SaberSim one is doing almost exactly the same as what he does. I know from listening to other people in podcasts, other professionals like Daniel Hutchins, Nerdy Tenor, who's a massively successful multi-sport DFS player, does exactly that. A lot of these professionals are actually data scientists in reality. And these sims are doing what they were doing to make a living. So you don't have to believe me on this. Look at the ecosystem. What it's telling us is the most important tool in the armory at the moment is one that predicts the other lineups in your contests. Okay, and so that's what you should be focusing on. How you take leverage from that. The other thing about that, quick aside to it, is when you get DFS advice from somebody and they're saying this is a cash play and this is a GPP play, saying it's just a GPP play isn't enough. Because, as you know, we have these contests with 100 participants in them, etc., and we have contests with 100,000 and 200,000. You need a different lineup for those contests.
Yep.
A totally different lineup. Obvious example, Justin Jefferson is predicted to be 30% owned this week in, say, the Millie Maker. In one of those 100-person contests, he'll be 70, 80% owned. Because that's how the ownership kind of goes. The high ownership goes even higher, the low ownership goes lower. You don't need that really random, what was his name? Like McLaughlin running back TD and stuff in those little 100-mans. If a guy like that gets 2 touchdowns, you'll need them in a big contest. So again, GPP advice. It's a different, if you're playing in a 100-man or a 5,000-man, a 10,000, 100,000, 200, they're all different lineups you need. And, it frustrates me that people don't talk about the DFS in these terms. It really does.
Wow. Like, where have you been these last couple of weeks?
Preparing that speech.
Oh, my word. Unbelievable. I'm just sat back and I'm like, wow. Like, you've been speaking now, like, what, 7-8 minutes? And, yeah. We've missed you, Mark. The glue that holds it all together. You're absolutely right with the lineup things. And I think we alluded to this in the first week, Jack, when we were talking about if you're playing the Millie versus a single entry contest that has, let's say, 2,000 people in it, your lineup should be different between the two. If it isn't, one of those contest lineups that you've put in is wrong. Like you've constructed that lineup wrong because it's completely different. And we did talk about this a little bit in week one. An interesting thing as well that I was listening to, I can't recall the podcast, but it was last week and they were talking about cash. Like some people enter like cash contests where, like if it's a 50-50 double or whatever it might be, they'll enter the ones that have, say, 1,000 people in. Some people will enter the ones that have 20,000 people in. What difference does that make? And one of the interesting points that they said is the more people that enter that contest, the more mistakes there'll be amongst the field. Which is an interesting point because I'd never really thought of it like that, and historically I'd just looked and just entered any random double up. But now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, where are the kind of the higher entrants? Because if I'm playing a larger field and it's cash, and there's a large percentage of this field that either don't know how to construct cash lineups or will make mistakes when building that lineup, the more people, the more mistakes. So that got me thinking a little bit as well on cash, which I'd not thought of before.
The cash thing is actually quite simple. People complicate this in their advice. You should just be trying to get the highest owned players.
Yeah.
Because mathematically, it's just maths. That gives you the best chance of doing well. Jordan Cooper once on Roto Grinders did a whole episode on just showing you the maths of that, and how it changes as you have different types of contests and stuff. So with the cash stuff, it's go for the highest owns and stuff. I mean, people were cashing last week with Joshua Kelly, for God's sake, and
which was a really.
We
bad
all knew that was a GPP fade, didn't we? We all knew that.
I faded him pretty much everything because, I did. Who did they play the Titans? So the Titans have got one of the most stingiest run defenses in the league, and that was proven in week 1 when they played the Saints. I don't know why people were just going back there. It's like what we were talking about last week, Nick, where I was saying where you have to look at these team depth charts and all right, there's no Eckler, but there is Keenan Allen, there is Mike Williams, there is Gerald Everett, and what are the Chargers? They're a pass-heavy team. They're not a run-heavy team. When Eckler is used in that scheme, he is used as predominantly as a pass catcher. So the Kelly play, I was such a bad play. I literally a complete fade of it last week. I know what you're saying, Mark. It was fine. It worked out.
It was a good cash play. No, it was a good cash play because it was 50% owned.
Yeah, but that's just my little bit of advice on it. Again, I just want to go back to what we were saying last week, Nick, about these you need to look at team depth charts and you need to see what these teams do on a weekly basis. The Chargers are a pass-heavy team. That was always going to be a bad play.
Yeah, I agree. I completely faded him. Even in cash, I faded Kelly because I just thought, I mean, with Eckler, Kelly was still getting touches. So without Eckler, Kelly wasn't going to get all the touches. And lo and behold, Spiller got some touches. And like you said, Jack, they absolutely torched them through the air.
Yeah. And why did Spiller get the touches? Because he's the pass catching back in the backfield.
Yeah.
That's why he got the touches. This is what you need to do. You need to look. I write this every week in the frigging newsletters I put out. You need to look at these teams' depth charts. You need to see what they're doing. Just because, the number one running back's out, Eckler's a completely different runner compared to like Josh Kelly, for example. They're on two different levels. It was such a bad play, and when people were going to it, I was just like, okay, just go to it, like whatever. You could have got Kyron Williams for the same price.
Yeah.
The thing is, you have to cut out the noise a bit as well, because like use another example from last week when Montgomery went down. For months, people have been Jahmyr Gibbs is the best and all that. He's the greatest. And then they ran Craig Reynolds, didn't they?
Yeah, but this is another thing I've said though.
Is it Craig Reynolds? Yeah.
I went on Twitter about this. It's like you see all these people crying about Jahmyr Gibbs. Oh, he's an elite running back, but he may well be. I don't know. I haven't watched enough college football to know if he's an elite all-star running back. But this team told you what they wanted to do last year with an all-star running back and DeAndre Swift on it. They want to use a frigging grind and pounder guy on the frigging goal line. Why? It's the same coaching stuff. They're not going to change. Like, people get it in the head. That is one thing on Twitter that drives me nuts. Just because someone was good in college doesn't mean they're going to be excellent in the NFL. How many busts have we seen come out of college that, this player's generational talent. They've come into the NFL and they're a complete bust.
Right.
Jack, just hold on a minute. Are you trying to tell me that the professional coaches who work with these players every single day know more about these players than random people on the Twitter? Is that what you're actually saying?
Yes.
No, I'm not. I can't believe that. Where's the buzzer button, Nick? We need a buzzer like a Family Fortunes. Yeah, exactly. That's what we need. That would be one of them, I think.
You know, I'm right.
Not going to argue with you, Jack.
No, there's no argument about it. It drives me. And people take it into DFS, which is what drives me nuts. It's just bad bad play. Look what these teams
Bad
are doing.
process. It's bad process.
It's bad process. They are telling you
It's
what
bad
they
process.
want to do.
Yeah, it's bad process.
The Millie lineup, then let's finish on this, fellas, for a few minutes. And Mark, I will endeavour to put names on the next week, but even without names, this is a vast improvement on what almost got shared last week, which was it just looked like a big long giant Asda receipt.
It was bad.
I don't know what I was thinking. But yeah, we ended up just talking through it, which we could have done again, to be fair. But I fancied being a little bit creative and put this little graphic together. So this was the winner of the Millie Maker contest on DraftKings last week. I have tried to design this in the way of an NFL team in terms of layout. So in the middle, you've got Daniel Jones, who was the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. Running back behind him, we have Saquon Barkley, we have Rashad White, and Zach Moss, who I played plenty of at the weekend. Just to Daniel Jones's right, we got Darren Waller. To Darren Waller's right, we've got Keenan Allen, and then the two receivers on the other side are Nico Hollins and Nico Collins, even, and Christian Kirk, and the Tampa Bay Pirates defense, the Bucks, which was the highest scoring defense. So this lineup had 4 of the highest scoring players at their positions: Daniel Jones, Nico Collins, Keenan Allen, and the Bucks, all highest scoring at their positions. And for that, actually, Darren Waller at 13.6 was just behind Mark Andrews, just under 2 points. So he was a high scorer there as well. And Saquon was also a high scorer, beaten in the flex by Puka Nacua. But at 27.2, whichever way you look at it, if he was one of your starting 2 backs and then you've put Rashad White or Moss in your flex, you'd be quite happy with that scoring based on what you've paid. Ownership on this team, 81% for the whole team.
It's because of the Giants, isn't it, I presume?
Yeah. Low owned. You would think that stack of Daniel Jones, Saquon, and Darren Waller. No run back, but didn't need it.
Run backs aren't necessary.
I bet he was. I bet this guy was pulling his hair out at halftime in that Cardinals Giants game. I tell you, Jesus. It's a weird one. I preferred last week's Mini Maker build. Like we discussed that quite in depth last week, but I wouldn't normally play 3 running backs. I think you're better off with a wide receiver in the flex personally. Clearly not this.
Especially it feels.
Sorry.
This year, especially, it feels.
Yeah.
Clearly
not this week. But so fair play to him for doing it. But yeah, normally I'd play the wide receiver in the flex. But you've got the obviously correlation with Daniel Jones and Darren Waller there. Darren Waller's the number 1 option really on the Giants, so don't hate that. Pass catching option, should I say? Because Barkley's obviously the number 1 option. He's obviously paired the Bucks defense with Rashad White, which is something I like to do. I like to have my defense along with one of my running backs on the same team. The Colts played so you got the Zach Moss there with Nico Collins. It's a weird build. I do definitely prefer last week's build, Nick, personally. I'm fair play to the guy who won. I might let Mark talk about it a bit more, but yeah, there's not a lot that I do in this build apart from the defense with the running back.
I can see where he was going with the Zach Moss and the Nico Collins play. I actually went Zach Moss and Pierce in my lineups because I read that Stroud was still nursing, I think, his shoulder or his arm from the week before. and the coaches have come out and said that they're probably going to need to lean on the run game more.
And then did he run it? Did he throw it 47 times after that or something?
And then literally just
Yeah.
went nothing but pass. And
Yeah.
I was just watching it like, what on earth have I even read to make me want to play Pierce? Have I imagined that? What is going on? I thought, do you know what? I even looked and Collins was projected well. But the chatter was, why is he projected to score? I think he was projected 14 or 15. Why is he projected to score that when Stroud's arm is falling off? And then he comes out and literally slings it everywhere. So I get the play. I was on the right kind of wavelength with that, but just the wrong play on the Texans side. But yeah, thoughts on this, Mark?
I don't dislike it as much as Jack does. You've got to remember, mind, this isn't the optimal lineup. It's the winning lineup. You know, optimal wise, it's probably, I don't know, top 500 if you're lucky. Or I don't know.
Probably needed
Top
Mike
300.
Evans in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The Zach Moss and Nico Collins were just a basic volume based on week 1 and stuff and the injuries and everything. You know, we knew Zach Moss was good. He got 100% of the CAD touches, didn't he? So I like it. The thing I think to take from this is just to remind people as much as when you have a quarterback and running back together, especially if it's the bell cow running back, you kind of guaranteed all the touchdowns from that team, you know, to some degree. You know, the Waller thing could have worked out better, and it just wasn't the way the game script went and stuff. But that way you guaranteed all of the, you know. And then the Christian Kirk thing was just a case of everybody went mental because he didn't get any points the week before, didn't they? And
he also got a bit lucky with that play
Christian
because Zay Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, that was because I played Zay Jones. It was infuriating. He had 3 end zone looks, and I think he caught 2 of them, but his feet were out of bounds. Like one of his feet were out of bounds. Zay Jones literally could have nuked himself last week. So he got lucky with that Christian Kirk because I think Ridley left the game for a little bit. It wasn't a long time, but he smashed into the post in the end zone. I think Zay Jones left that game for a little bit as well. So he's locked out a bit with Kirk.
Yeah, and I mean it was about 30 points off being optimal, but he's hit on quite a few there, and then the ones he's not hit on, he's still scored well. The differences in the optimal: Kyron Williams, Brian Robinson popping up.
Mike Williams and Mike Evans. Sorry,
Mike Evans was on there. Yeah, Mark Andrews, Puka Nacua. Those are the missing ones.
Yeah.
And the optimal lineup with 1,300 spare in the bank as well. So just goes to show, don't need to spend all your pennies in this game.
No.
Nice. Enjoyed that once again, fellas. Anything further to add before we draw a line under proceedings?
Nope. Shakes
of the head. Find us on the X at Jack Humphrey DFS. Jack, I believe you've gained about 40,000 followers today.
I did. I think people think this is a regular thing. So yeah,
it's going to become a private profile, that one soon. And Mark at _SMRF. You can find me at Nick of Wigan. We have once again been touchdowns for Doe. Good luck in week 3. Gamble responsibly, all that stuff. And we will see you next Tuesday.
It is.